Hi, Math 3 students. So today we're going to talk about the law of sines. So far we've really only been working with right triangles. We learned about Pythagorean theorem, which deals with right triangles. We learned about special right triangles such as 45, 45, 90, 30, 60, 90. And then we learned about the trig ratios, SOHCAHTOA, which also only deals with right triangles. So far, we've learned a bunch of different calculations about right triangles. Now, are all triangles right triangles? No, right? You could have different angles within the triangle, right? Specifically, we've just been working with right triangles, but we're going to kind of delve into what we can do with triangles that are not right triangles. So how do we solve a triangle that does not have a right angle? So one way is to use the law of sines. The law of sines is used for the following cases, which is angle, angle, side, angle, and side, side, angle. All right. So we'll kind of talk about what that means. Now the law of sines, it says let triangle ABC be any triangle with A, B, and C representing the measures of the sides opposite the angles with measures A, B, and C respectively. Then the following is true. So let's kind of talk about how this triangle is set up. So I want you to notice how angle B is across from side B. This is very important. Oh, whoa. So we've got that side across from there, and then you can see that angle A is across from side A. And angle C is across from side C. So it's important that you know how to set this up, and this will be the case for all of these, all right? And basically what the law of sines is you set up a proportion and you do, sine of your angle over that side. So for example, let's say this was like 50 degrees, and we'll say this was 10. We would do sine of 50 over 10. That's how you would set that up. And the two A's go together. So let's go ahead and try and solve here. So this first problem gives us two angles and a side. So if you look at which case this is, right, we have an angle, a side, and an angle. So that's going to be this case here. So we are allowed to use law of sines. So they specifically want us to find side AC. All right, so this is what we're looking for here. Now let's kind of identify which side that is. If this is angle B, that means that this is side B. We're looking for side B. So we can start setting up our proportion here. We're going to want to use sine of B. So we could do sine of 22 over, and then we don't know what that side is equal to. So we can't plug in a value for that yet. Then we need to set up another one of these. Now, in order to set up a proportion, you need both, either the angle and side for C or the angle for A and the side for A. So looking here, I don't have the side for A. So this is kind of useless. I can't use sine of A. However, I do have my side for angle C, but I don't have angle C. But what I could do is I could just do 180 minus 118 minus 22. And that's going to give me 40. So I now have angle C, which is 40 degrees, and then side C, which is 24. So I could say sine of 40 over 24. So now I have a proportion set up, and when you set up these proportions, you should only be missing one part, and this here is the part that we're missing, right? That's the part we're solving for. So we can go ahead, and this is screaming cross multiplication, so let's go ahead and cross multiply these. So we'll multiply these guys. We get 24 sine of 22 equals, and we get B times sine of 40. And again, this is what we're solving for. So I'm going to go ahead and divide by sine of 40. So in my calculator, I'm going to plug in parentheses 24 sine of 22. I always put parentheses around my numerator and my denominators here. And then we're going to divide by sine of 40. So let's go ahead, we'll open up our calculator and give it a shot here. So we've got 24 sine of 22 divided by sine of 40. And I got 13.98. And they want us to round to the nearest tenth. So actually that's going to end up getting rounded to 14.0. The reason for that is the 8 rounds the 9 up. The 9 then is going to round the 3 up. So we end up with 14.0. So let's go ahead and try the next example here. So they want us to find angle A. So let's go ahead. We don't know angle A, but that's what we're looking for. Then we look, okay, well, we do have side A, so that's really cool. We can put that in there. We know that side A is 11. And then I'm looking, and I will say this is tough to tell which angle this goes to. This looks like it goes to angle B there. So we'll say angle B. I wouldn't give you a problem like this on a test where you couldn't tell which angle goes where. But B here is going to be 129. And then side B is going to be 33. And then they did give us the side for C, which was 25, but they didn't give us the angle. So they didn't give us that information. So looking here, we're specifically looking for angle A. And in order to set up the proportion, you need to have all the information for at least one of the letters, which we do here, right? We have all the information for B. So that's great. We're definitely going to want to use B. So we could do sine of 129 over 33 equals, and then we're looking for A, so we'll do sine of angle A equals, I'm sorry, sine of angle A over 11, because that's your side A. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and solve here. So we're going to cross multiply, and we get 11 sine of 129 equals 33 sine of A. Then we're going to go ahead and divide. So we get 33, we end up with 11 sine of 129 all over 33 equals sine of A. Now you're probably looking, you're like, well, how the heck do I solve for A here? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to do sine inverse of this entire thing. Okay, in order to get A by itself, you're going to do sine inverse. So we're going to type in sine inverse of 11 sine of 129 all over 33. So I know this is tricky. Remember when you solve for an angle, you have to use sine inverse. It was a little bit easier with SOHCAHTOA because I just said, go straight to sine inverse when you're solving for an angle. This one you have to do a little bit of work, and then once you get the sine of your angle by itself, then you could just do sine inverse on whatever it equals. So we'll go ahead and we'll plug that in. Should make sure I'm in the right mode. Okay, yeah. All right, so we're going to do sine inverse of, and then our numerator, which is 11 sine of 29, divided by 33, close parenthesis, and I got 9.29, which is going to round us to 9.3. Oh, sorry, 9.3. All right, so that means that angle A is going to be 9.3. Cool. So sometimes they are going to give you, they won't give you a picture, right? They'll just straight up give you the letters. So it says solve each triangle round to the nearest tenth. Remember when it says solve, this means to find all the missing angles. All right. So that means that instead of just looking for, one specific thing, we're going to have to solve for everything. So you're going to essentially want to write something out like this, and you should have everything filled in by the end. So let's write that out. We don't know angle A yet, and we don't know side A. So we'll have to leave those blank for the time being. We do know angle B. It's 100. We don't know side B, so we'll leave that blank. And we know that angle C is 50 and side C is 30. So I say first, let's go ahead and solve for side B. So, like I said before, you have to make sure that you have at least one of your letters completely accounted for, and that's going to be C, right? We have the angle for C and we have the side for C, so we're going to want to use that. So we'll go sine of 50 all over 30 equals, and then we've got sine of 100, and we're looking for side B. So we're definitely going to run out of space here, so I'm just saying you might want to write smaller than what I'm doing. All right, so we'll go ahead and cross multiply, and we get B sine of 50 equals 30 sine of 100. Divide both sides by sine of 50, and we get B equals 30 sine of 100 all over sine 50. So we can go ahead and plug that in now. 30 sine 100 divided by sine 50. I got 38 point, and let's see, they say round to the nearest tenth, so it'd be 38.6. It's going to be our side B. So now we have to go ahead and find A. Now, this is tricky because you're looking and you're like, well, I have no information on A, right? However, you do have two angles of a triangle. And we know that all the angles of a triangle need to add up to 180. So we could do 180 minus 100 minus 50. And that's going to give us our angle of 30. So you at least need one piece of information to solve for a letter. So now we've got our angle for A, and we're good to go. We should be able to solve for our side. So it doesn't matter if you choose to use it doesn't matter if you choose to use C or B to set up your proportion. We'll just go ahead and stick with C since that's what we were given here. So we'll start with sine of 50 all over 30 equals sine of 30 all over A. Now, I guess I should probably point out these proportions here, you could change you could kind of like flip-flop it. So like here I have it set up as like sine of C over C equals sine of A over A. You're able to kind of move those around. However, the letters need to stick together. So like the C's need to stay together, the A's need to stay together. But if you like flip-flop the order, that's totally fine. All right, so we'll go ahead and cross multiply, and we get A sine of 50 equals 30 sine of 30. Divide by sine 50. And we get A equals 30 sine 30 divided by sine 50. Then we can go ahead and plug that in. We get 30 sine 30 divided by sine 50. And we get 19.58, which we can round to 19.6. And we're done. So that was a lot of work, but totally doable. So again, I just want to reiterate the importance here. All you're doing is setting up proportions. You're using this proportion we gave you in the beginning and using it to solve for the unknown sides. All right, let's go ahead and try 4 here. So let's set it up. We've got that A is 40, little a is 13. So again, we have our angle 40, side 13. And then the side of B is 16. So we don't know angle B, we don't know angle C, and we don't know side C. So looking here, I cannot go straight to C right now. I have absolutely no information on C, so I cannot set up a proportion for it. But I have all of my information on A, and I have half my information on B. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for my angle B next. So we've got sine of 40 over 13 is going to give us sine of B over 16. Now notice we're solving for an angle here, so we're going to have to use the sine inverse to get our answer. So we'll go ahead and cross multiply, and we get 16 sine of 40 equals 13 sine of B. Divide by 13, and we get 16 sine of 40 over 13 equals sine of B. Now this is where we need to go ahead and do sine inverse. So we get B is going to equal sine inverse of what this equals. So it's going to be sine inverse of 16 sine of 40 all over 13. Now you might be wondering, why do we do the sine inverse? Essentially what you're doing is you're taking the sine inverse of both sides. So I guess I could write this out. So you're doing like sine inverse of this, sine inverse of that. So remember, like when we talked about, like, I guess, you know, when you solve, you always do the opposite operation to get the variable by itself, right? Like if it's like 5x equals 10, to get the x by itself, you divide by 5 because that's the opposite of multiplying by 5. It's the same thing here. To get rid of the sine of B, we have to do sine inverse of B. And essentially what happens then is on this side, the B pops out. So then you're left with just B equals sine inverse of 16 sine 40 over 13, which is what we have up here. All right, so we can go ahead and plug that in. And we get sine inverse of 16 sine 40 divided by 13. And I got 52.2. Oh, actually I need to round that up. Never mind, 52.3. The reason we're rounding up is it's 52.29. The 9 rounds the 2 up to a 3. Awesome. So let's go ahead. Didn't mean to erase that. I just want to minimize it a little bit. So I'm going to run out of space pretty quickly here. All right. So now we have to go ahead and figure out what angle C is. So again, we know that the three angles of a triangle need to add up to 180, so we can do 180 minus 40 minus 52.3. And we get 87.7. So we can go ahead and set up another proportion to solve for side C. So we've got sine of 87.7 all over C. We don't know what that is. And then we got to use either A or B to help us out here. We'll use A. So we do sine of 40 all over 13. We'll cross multiply. We get 13 sine 87.7 equals C sine 40. Divide by sine 40. And we get that C is 13 sine 87.7 all over sine 40, which we will plug into our calculator. Sine 87.7 divided by sine of 40. I got 20.2. And now this triangle is solved for. We have all of our angles and all of our sides.